Good morning, all. I'm just reading the end of this motion to change venue for Richard Allen. This is, I mean, we knew this was going to come. That's just normal. But I wanted to read it fully and see what it said. And then went to the Google Trend Analytics and everything else on it. How's everybody doing? Analytics and everything. I didn't want that. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. I'm just finishing up this. For more people to jump in. I'm going to go into the Moscow, Idaho murders of the 4 college students also. Tragic case, very sad. It's even worse how what's going on Twitter and Facebook and all the accusing, who's their suspect and why, and putting their names out there, pictures. It's scary stuff. Very scary stuff. Hey, Vincent, happy holidays. Hello there, Zooter. Public, I saw your comment. I need to answer you. Hey, D. Doing good. I'm getting better. Still a little congested, but I'm all good. Was at the doctor again last week. What's up, Tech Death? Hey, Kelly. Thank you. Let's see. Just going through the chat here. One second. Seeing if hello, New York, Rory. Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Slow and steady. Hey, sweet Jules. What's everybody think of the Idaho case? 4 kids: Ethan, Zana, Kaylee, and Madison. Terrible. Very, very sad stuff. Very sad stuff. Hey, Vanessa. Hope you're doing well. Hey, Grizz. So I've been speaking to the grad student, Jeremy, who he's done some interviews. He lives, he's a neighbor to the house where the murders took place, and he's been getting thrown around and been accused as a suspect and everything else. So I talked to him again last night, kind of really early this morning. So I'm waiting to hear back from him. Thanks, Vanessa. Hope you guys are all doing well too. Crazy times. We're in some crazy times. It's very sad. Yeah, it's horrifying what I mean, the way the scene's described, it's absolutely horrifying what they came up on. I know there's rumors of the 911 call and that somebody fainted. It just sounds like to me it sounds like they couldn't gain access to the bedrooms. Maybe they were calling their friends or texting them. Nobody was answering. They couldn't get through. They asked a friend. I mean, they lived pretty close by to the frat house and stuff. So I'm assuming maybe Ethan's frat brothers, whatever you would call them, came over, and then they called law enforcement. Yeah, there's a lot that can indicate that. It's way too much speculation to just get into why. But two others that lived there were unharmed. It could be that their doors were locked. Um, Scary stuff. Definitely scary, scary stuff. Those two girls that survived are going to need a lot of therapy. A lot of therapy. Maybe talking about the case in Idaho, where the four kids were murdered in their sleep, supposedly. Yeah, it's tough. And law enforcement's getting, taking a beating from, the internet and everything else. But I'm sure they got a handle on it. They had state police there. They after they discovered the bodies, they got a warrant. The responding officers went outside and just held the scene down until they got a warrant and crime scene went in. So I think they got, they have been going back to the scene and getting, doing more analysis, but that's normal, you know? Yeah, it could be possible. We don't know where the dog was. There was the dog there. Was the dog sleeping with one of the other girls? I know the dog belonged to Kaylee, but that doesn't matter. I mean, the dog grew up in that house. It could go sleep with somebody else. It could be possible. Yeah, they want it solved in 2 weeks. I mean, I'm sure everything is getting fast tracked. All the evidence and whatnot, but it's just the way it is. It's just the way it goes. We're in a time where majority is against law enforcement. And they're going to beat them up in the public. Got to remember, this is I think the last murder was 5 years ago there. So it's not a place that sees too many homicides. That plays into it too. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's sad. That's very sad. And I believe wasn't one of the girls from there? I think so. Yeah, it's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do. You got to just roll with the punches, and they're doing the best they can. They will get the person or persons that did this. It's just going to take a little time. Oh, yeah, I mean, four families destroyed. The other two girls, they're going to need a lot of therapy, and this is something that's going to be with them the rest of their life. Maybe they got stuff back from the initial, but they were there. I want to say 2, 3 days ago. They were maybe 3 nights ago. They were still looked like in the rooms where they found the girls and still taking samples and stuff. You know, I would think in the next 2 weeks they'll be closer. Could be sooner, but whole thing comes down to even if the killer cut himself, if he's not in the system, then what? You know that's the problem. Is it a college student? Is it somebody who just you know maybe was a stalker? You know, when they say it's targeted, there could be many things. What was one of the victims a little more you know cut up? Was there maybe some mutilation to that one person? There's a lot of reasons that you could go with that it's targeted. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I saw a little while ago one of the girls that went back to school who's a senior said that it's not many kids walking around, and I can understand it. Yeah, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. But the ones that are bashing them will still call 911 when they need them. It's just the way it goes. Another sad case in Mexico. I'm not sure what you mean. Let me know what you mean. What's potential left to break? Yeah, absolutely. The killer could have left too. Yeah, I think she was too. I think she was from there. Yeah, I mean, they could always go to that. Yeah, you know. But think of it, if it say it's a college student that did this, that's one of the kids that, maybe, whatever the reason is. Familial DNA is their family are they in the system and stuff, it's tough. It's not always, it's not always you always want to look that way, but that's always not going to solve it. Yeah, I mean, anybody who has any of you listening who have their have a lock on their door that's coded, I think there's YouTube videos out there that you can watch at how you can watch how they just get right into those. Secure your house, make sure your house is safe. If you're a deep sleeper, you live alone, get an animal, get a dog, get a Belgian Malinois. You wanna protect your house. I mean, I'm just, my dog, when we're sleeping, she's up. She's walking around. Oh, absolutely. And I know the families want more information, but it's a give or take what you even give the family, because you just don't want. I mean, one of the families has done a lot of media interviews, and I'm sure they were told stuff and didn't put it out, but that's tough for law enforcement to be giving a lot of information out when it's going somewhere else, you know? Okay, he's typing me back now. So just waiting. Oh, cool. He's logging in now. So that's cool. So moderators, just be respectful, make sure everybody's respectful to him, and anybody that's accusing him of anything, just get rid of them. Plain and simple. They don't need to be here. It was the target attack. I was thinking maybe because it's so dark when the perpetrator arrived that once the target had been killed, that's when they left, leaving other roommates alive. Well, I mean, it could be possible that they didn't get to their last, their intended target to the last one. I mean, that's always possible. But if you're, say you go in the wrong room and that girl is sleeping, you could also walk. Oh, he's here. Okay, 1 second. Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. How's everything going?
A lot better than it was a couple days ago. After I started
Yeah.
sort of explaining my story, people are like, "Oh, actually, I can see why it's not you." And so it's been a lot better over the past 24 hours than
Yeah.
it was the previous day.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that happened to you, and it does happen. It's a case where four kids, and you're gonna have everybody looking at it, and it's terrible that they just start accusing people, doxing
Yeah.
them, putting pictures up, it's very sad. It's just you don't need that stress.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you're pretty much right there to the crime scene.
Yeah. I'm right next door. I'm
Yeah.
not the closest apartment to it, but I'm just a few doors down.
Yeah.
So still super
You're pretty
close.
close. Yeah. And just tell everybody that wasn't it the first interview, you were outside, you were carrying your garbage, and they just asked you if you'd do an interview, and you said, okay.
That was the second one.
The second, okay.
Yeah, the first one, I was just in my house because we had received the shelter in place order. And so I was just inside, and then I got a knock on my door. The first one was the police officer coming by just door to door. And then a little while later, I got another knock on the door. I thought maybe it was the cop again. I opened the door and it was a reporter. And she was like, "Hi, we're just trying to interview people here just to see their thoughts. Can we interview you?" And so I said, "Sure." So that was the first interview I did, was just the one in the plain black t-shirt. And then the second one I did was when I was taking out my garbage before I was going to leave for Thanksgiving break. And that's the one when when the reporter stopped me and asked for the interview.
Okay. I mean, and you live there. You have to go out of your apartment. So if reporters are there, they're going to always ask. And you just seem like a genuine person. So you're going to say, okay.
Yeah. So actually, I did an interview with some reporters with Court TV yesterday, and it was sort of the same thing. I had mentioned in the interview, if you ask me to do a favor for you, as long as it's not going to physically or financially hurt me, I have no reason to say no. And so, I mean, even though I don't really have beneficial information to give, if they want to ask me questions about just like the general feel of the neighborhood and stuff like that, then I'll answer the questions.
Yeah, and I think you told Court TV yesterday that I'll give my DNA, I give fingerprints. You basically said I have nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I totally feel for you. I mean, so you're what, a third year grad student, law student?
Yeah, third year law student.
Okay, I mean, good. That's amazing. And so you really didn't know much about it. You just you didn't interact with them.
Correct. Yeah, no, I don't really interact with any of my neighbors, partly because all of them are undergrads and I don't have too much in common with them.
Yeah.
But also I just don't really interact with people I don't know unless they start the interaction. And so I would walk by and I would smile at them as I would walking by, but I never stopped to say hi or anything like that.
Yeah, just you being neighborly.
Yeah.
Little hi, little wave. That's it. I totally get it. And how many students are back? Because I saw something maybe a little while ago. There was a senior who said that it's pretty much quiet on campus. How is it on campus? You're back on campus now, right?
Yeah, I'm currently on campus. At least yesterday in my class, about half the class was there. The other half, I'm assuming, was online for both of my classes. And then just walking to school yesterday, I noticed that there were, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 students that I had noticed on my walk, whereas usually it would be 30, 40, 50 at any given time, just walking to and from classes. And so I would assume roughly like a third to maybe half of students probably stayed home after break, just because the university did give the option to finish remotely this semester.
Yeah, and I could understand that even parents wouldn't want their freshman kid going back to school with this going on. It's scary. It's scary for the people that live in the town too, I'm sure, because law enforcement's only going to tell what they want everybody to know, and that's just the hard part of investigations. They can only give a certain amount because they can't risk their case at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. What I want to, and I'm sorry about the. I mean, I defended you on one of the things last night. I got a message from somebody. I mean, people are nasty, and that's just the way it is. They just get it stuck in their head that, oh, this is him, and you seem very genuine. To me, you have nothing to do with it, and I spoke to you last night about that. I really do feel bad that you're getting attacked like that. So
yeah. I don't know if I had told you, but I've told a couple other people that when people were harassing me, that's fine. I have a thick skin. I can take it. But one of my friends had messaged me yesterday morning and had sent me a screenshot of someone messaging them over Facebook asking about me. And so that's when I decided, all right, it's time for me to sort of address this head on. And I'll answer questions personally so that people don't have to go to friends and family members asking about me. Because again, they can harass me. That's fine. I can take it, but I don't want the other people involved for no reason.
It's really terrible that you would even have to defend yourself like this. It's gross. It really is gross.
Yeah.
Fair play, Jeremy. I think Ellie needs to come out and clear him. Somebody said, "Oh, congrats, Jeremy. I'm a law nerd here." I don't know if you can see the comments.
Yeah, I can see one at a time, so I can see that Zooter's also a law nerd.
Oh yeah. Zooter's a good person. Anybody have any questions to ask Jeremy? Jeremy's here. He seems like a very, very good person who just gave a couple interviews because he lives there, Oh, here you go. This is good. This great. Rockaways is a good question. Jeremy, did you ever feel unsafe in your neighborhood before the murders? Did any female friends ever express concern? Good question.
Not really. So I'd sort of mentioned in some of my posts that before I moved up to Moscow, I had carried a weapon on me. And then I moved up to Moscow and I had carried it with me for most of the first semester I was up here, just because I was used to where I had used to live and it was just a little more sketchy and unpredictable. But then moving up here, I realized that this is a much smaller community. It felt much safer whenever there was any crimes. It seemed to be mostly nonviolent crimes like drugs or maybe like a theft or something, but
It's
never
college,
like an armed robbery or stuff like that. And so the neighborhood felt safe. It was just a bunch of college kids going and having fun in the neighborhood because it's just off campus. And so you don't have to follow all the campus rules. So it never felt unsafe. And then to the expressing concern from female friends, from specific people, yes, but that was just because of interactions they had had with those people.
Yeah.
It was never like a general concern of, oh, I feel unsafe in Moscow or in this neighborhood specifically. It was just a couple of people, which is always going to happen. There's always going to be some people that just do or say things that sort of throw up those warning flags where it's like, I should probably just avoid this person. But it was never anything like generally. It was always directed at a couple of specific people for things they'd either done or said.
That makes sense. We have another good question. Can you give me an idea of what the walk from Sigmund Shi to the house would be like how long it would take? And is it pretty flat, hilly? What is it like? Dark? Is it dark? Are there lights over there?
So the time it would take, I would say 30 seconds if you're on a good pace, a minute if you're walking at a fairly casual pace. It's really close.
Yeah.
It's almost completely flat. Moscow is in a bunch of hills. So there are a couple of minor hills, but it's maybe like a 30-foot elevation change total. It's not very much.
Yeah.
Because it goes across like an old practice football field, soccer field area. So it's generally flat. And then you hit Taylor Avenue, you cross over, and then it's just a steady incline up to the house, which I'm sure you've seen in like interviews or just various footage. You've seen that incline up the stairs directly to the house. But yeah, it's super, super close. There's no cover. There's no trees or anything right there. It's on that football field, soccer field practice area.
From the front of the house out, it's wide open, but then you have the rear of the house that has the little trees, has some trees, there's a parking lot back there too, right? Anybody hang out in that parking lot? You ever see anybody hanging out in that parking lot?
No, that parking lot is just the upper parking lot for the apartment complex I live at.
Okay.
Because there's
so that's basically your parking. Yeah, that's your parking lot.
Yeah, the people that live in the upper of the two buildings generally park up there because it's closer. And so
that's good. See, I didn't know that was the parking lot for your set of buildings. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that little backyard, it's obviously that little flat area right behind, and then it goes up that steep hill with all the trees that you've seen. That's pretty much it in terms of like tree cover. There are other trees, but they're on other properties because right up even above that parking lot, there are other houses, and there's so where Taylor goes, it goes over and then it sort of turns left and goes up the hill. So just right up above that parking lot is just where that road loops around to.
Okay.
And so there's not really a lot of tree cover there up beyond just that little area in that backyard there. You're going to either hit a house or a road or something.
Now, let me ask a question. From your apartment or any of the apartments, can that area there, you could pretty much see back there, right? Like somebody was sitting in that little tree area, like say there was a stalker watching, somebody could pretty much see from one of the apartments because they're elevated looking down, correct?
So you are elevated, but the way that the buildings are situated, I don't think you would be able to see because there's no windows on the side of the building, just the front and back.
Okay.
And so I think the side of the building would be obstructing any sort of view from inside of the apartments. But if you're driving up the side hill to get to that upper parking lot or in the upper parking lot, you would definitely see if anyone was sitting in that area.
So lights would kind of hit there if you're driving down the road there or up the road.
Yeah, if you have a vehicle with lights that were on, then you would definitely see someone. If you were just walking up in the nighttime, like if you were taking your dog out and just walking back up to go back to your house, probably not, because it was dark.
It's
It was
pretty
nearly
dark over there. Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there was any sort of light, you would be able to see someone in that area.
Cool. That's good to know. And I know a lot of people are making a lot of this small ladder that was, I don't know if you saw it, that's near the house now. I don't know if law enforcement brought it there. Have you seen that ladder prior to the crimes, murders?
I hadn't, but I also didn't look at that side of the house.
Yeah,
That was
that
never
makes
really
sense.
a side of the house that was in view. So it
That makes
might have been
sense.
there. It might have been something the police brought. It might have been something someone else brought. I have no idea.
That makes sense. Make up with Jackie said, Jeremy, I'm sorry people are so ridiculous. Social media can be helpful, but unfortunately people use it for bad. Yeah, it's very true. We got a question here. Jeremy, prior to the homicides, were there any accusations of a peeping Tom or any creepy activities, maybe discussed among students but not reported? Because, some things in college don't get reported.
Yes, if there was, I didn't know about it. Like I said, I didn't really interact with any of the undergrads just because I don't have much in common with them. I pretty much only interact with the people at the law school here. And so if there were rumors, I didn't hear any of them.
Makes sense.
But yeah, there was the guy with the knife back in September, but police have like threatening people on Paradise Path, but police have said that was unreported.
It was unfounded. I think they said unfounded, right?
Or sorry, not unreported. Unrelated is what I meant.
Unrelated. Oh, is that unrelated now? Okay.
Yeah, and I had read, but I can't confirm that that person had been arrested for doing that. And so I don't know if they were still in custody or otherwise being watched, but that's most likely why it's unrelated, is because I think the police have an idea of who was doing that versus who may or may not have done these other killings.
And now, what is the police presence like now? Are there a lot of extra troopers too on campus?
On campus, there are definitely more than there used to be. There used to be typically one police vehicle parked over by the old gym and the swimming building. And then that was usually it for police vehicles. But then now there's that one plus another, typically one or two, sometimes three, along the main walking path that goes through the center of campus. And so there's more police presence on the campus, which the university said there was going to be. And there's also,
which is good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, there's not a lot more presence in the general neighborhood because that neighborhood's a cul-de-sac. There's one way in and out on King Road. And so more officers are driving by on Taylor that I've noticed, but not really a lot coming on to either King or Queen, except to swap out with the person that's sitting in the vehicle that's just parked in front of the house, which I assume that person's just there to make sure no one goes and tampers with the crime scene.
Yeah, that's normal. You always you'll have a car. They'll have a car there 24 hours a day for a while. They're just locking the crime scene down, and that's just what it is. I don't know if you saw that there was a taxi driver in one of the Idaho local papers that said that he's brought many people. I believe it's a male. He's brought many people to that area where the house is. That it's a high drug traffic area. Do you know anything about that? Have you heard anything of that?
In terms of trafficking, I have no idea. It was sort of like a little party neighborhood, which again, it's a whole bunch of undergraduate housing just off of campus. There's not really much to do in Moscow except for party, because Moscow and Pullman are both fairly small, sort of in the middle of nowhere. So there's not really a whole lot to do other than that. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there were drugs in the area, but I don't have any knowledge about any sort of trafficking that may have been happening here.
I don't know. Public, I don't know if he could, I mean, there's really not much that he could answer on that. You know,
Yeah.
I
I was
mean,
gonna say I've sort of answered the question similar to what public asked. Of I feel like the killer probably knew the area. Um, a lot of people have come and gone through the area. It's not really a large place. It's easy to learn. You could learn it in a matter of like an hour. And so I would be shocked if the killer hadn't been in the neighborhood before, whether because they were friends with the victims or had partied with them before or had even been at other houses nearby. Uh, I'm pretty sure they knew the area.
yeah. Even with just the four victims, leaving two survivors, and I feel there's a lot more to why they feel it's targeted, and I think it'll come out further. It's just too soon for them to really give that info.
Yeah.
I want to know how confident you are of local law enforcement. How do you feel about them?
I feel like they're doing fine. Like I said, we're a fairly small town, so it was a fairly small force. But then we've had the Idaho State Police and we've had FBI come in to assist. And so between all three of those, I'm pretty confident they're going to catch the person. I'd be shocked if they didn't have it narrowed down to a couple of people and now they're just trying to get evidence to arrest. Because without a weapon, it's hard to have evidence to arrest unless there's like DNA or fingerprints. And so I'm sure at this point,
they have to be in the system too. That's the big. If it's a college kid that's not in the system, that's it's going to take a little bit longer. That's well, it's going to
Yeah.
I don't, Kelly. I don't believe it was random, and it could be something as small of a connection to one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen? I know you said that they're adding lights to your apartment building, right?
Yeah, so there was a light on the front corner, but it didn't work. And so after this happened, the apartment went in and fixed it. So now it does work and it really illuminates that whole area, which is kind of nice because that area was just pitch black.
Yeah.
There were no cameras on any buildings. Again, my apartment complex specifically is working on adding cameras. I'm sure other buildings in the neighborhood are doing it also, but I just don't have knowledge of that. But yeah, generally it was a dark area. There were not many lights at all.
Are you talking about the yellow apartments? So you can't see the house from those due to the angle. Your apartments are brick, aren't they?
They're both. It's a brick strip and then a yellow strip and then a brick and then yellow and then so it alternates. And so I assume that's what they mean by yellow apartments was the brown and yellow apartments right there. Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about is if you're on the lower of the two buildings, so between them, if you're on that inside row, you might be able to look out your front window and see to the trees a little bit, but I don't live on that side of it. And so I don't live to where I would be able to see that. So I'm just not sure. But from the upper building specifically, you wouldn't be able to see that tree area.
That makes sense. Were there a lot of noisy parties and nighttime disturbances in the area? If you heard noise and commotion inside a neighbor's house at night, would people just ignore it? College stuff.
I mean, it wasn't like loud to the point of being obnoxious. If you were walking by, you could hear music through like open windows and stuff. But if you were inside and had your windows closed, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. Back in my first year here, so 2020, 2021, it was really loud. You could have your windows closed, your TV on, and you would still hear the music over it. But this year it was mostly self-contained. A couple of times it did get a little bit loud. There were people whooping and hollering and having a good time, but that was far and few between. Most of the time, if you were inside, you couldn't hear anything.
My question is, 2 weeks before the weekend of Halloween, did you notice anything out of the ordinary that weekend? Because I know the week before was Parents' Weekend, right?
Yeah, one of those weekends. I don't remember exactly which weekend.
Yeah, I think it was the week before, and then the week before that was Halloween. Because I think it was on TikTok that they had a party at their house. So nothing in the last few weeks before, nothing out of the ordinary from the house you've seen.
Yeah, not that I noticed. Everything was normal. People would just come and go at the same rate as they had before.
Okay. How is the community and your family holding up considering what happens?
I mean, the community is still heartbroken. Um, a lot of the people here, whether they knew the students or not, they just don't like the idea that something like this could have happened so close to home. And so a lot of them are still sort of heartbroken, in shock a little bit. Um, my family's fine. Once I texted them immediately after and said, I'm fine. You don't have to worry. It wasn't me. Like, I'm not the one that was attacked. They were fine. They were a little bit worried about me just generally. It was just like, "We'll make sure you're taking
Makes
proper
sense.
safety precautions." But other than that, they didn't have any sort of like crisis or anything from hearing about it.
Makes sense. Can you talk about whether you noticed many parties, events at the victim's apartment house? I think you did mention that.
Yeah.
Um,
So it was a fairly common house that people would have parties at. Again, nothing crazy, like nothing getting thrown out the windows, no couches flying off the roofs, anything like that. It was just people
no
inside
Animal House. It
drinking,
wasn't the
dancing.
animal. It wasn't the Animal House. From
Yeah,
the
it was
movie.
just people inside drinking, listening to music, dancing, stuff like that. Just occasionally, like I said, it did get loud enough to where you could hear music through open windows, but it was never crazy. But yeah, there were a lot of people going in and out pretty regularly because campus is super close. Walking from the on-campus housing to there is like a 10-minute walk, and then it's not hard to just go back from there back home at the end of the night. And so people coming and going was common.
Okay. When walking past the house, could you hear Murphy the dog barking from inside the house? Did you ever hear the dog barking?
So I actually didn't know they had a dog until I read about it on the news. There was a lady that had lived there last year that I knew had a dog, but I hadn't seen her since last spring. And so I had figured she'd either graduated or moved to a different apartment. But I didn't know that the people that were living there currently even had a dog. I had never seen them going in or out of the house with a dog. And so I learned about it on the news that they had a dog.
It makes sense. I think on the wherever it was when it was advertised for rent, it said no dogs, no cats. So maybe they were trying to keep it low key. That could be possible too.
Possibly, yeah.
Did you hear any altercations, physical or verbal, from the murders? Any
Nope.
fights? Any any guys fighting on the lawn or anything? Nothing.
Nope. No, like I said, everything, it
No
was people
disputes,
there to have a good
boyfriend,
time. There were
girlfriend.
not that I saw or heard.
Okay.
Let's say,
Have you ever
usually,
attended a party there?
nope. I've never been
No.
inside the house. The one time I was even up close enough to touch the house was when I had found a phone on the ground last semester. It was in the neighborhood, so I figured it probably belonged to someone in the neighborhood, or at least someone would know. And so I just went from house to house, knocking on all the doors, asking people if they knew whose phone it was. And so that's the only time I've ever even been up close enough to touch the house, was when I went and knocked on the door, asked the person that answered if they knew whose phone it was. They said no, so I went to the next house and did the same.
Makes
That's the
sense.
only time I've ever even been close to the house, but I've never attended any of the parties, even in the neighborhood generally.
And now the person you was were they, did the girls that live there when you were there, or was it different girls?
It was a different set of people. Yeah, it was the people that lived there last school
Okay.
year.
I'm trying to see what else we got. This dude is boots on the ground and overall seems like a good guy, but a lot of channels have been making him out to be the killer, and they have no proof, just hunches. I hope he knows we don't. Well, that's why I had him come on, and we're not here to bash somebody. He seems like a good person. Jeremy, is there anyone suspicious that immediately came to mind for you or your neighbors after you found out about the crime?
Not for me specifically. I can't speak for my neighbors. I have no idea if they might have had someone in mind. But for me specifically, there's no one that I think. I do think it was likely a student. I think it was almost certainly a male, because a male is more likely to do something like this than a female. But other than that, I don't have any idea of who would have done it.
Very true. Somebody said, question for Jeremy. I'm sorry you're going through this. Did you meet any of the girls dog walking?
Not while they were walking their dog, because again, I didn't even know they had a dog. Um, as I was walking my dog, I had seen them typically in the mornings when they were either leaving their house or getting back with like some sort of coffee, whether it was Starbucks or Dutch Bros. Um, I would be taking my dog out and I would see them getting out of their car and walking back up to their door. But again, I never interacted with them beyond just like a simple like smile and the like head nod, like hello type of thing. I never learned their names or anything like that or stopped to talk to them.
Okay, interesting. Mrs. B says, stay vigilant and safe. These people online are ruthless and they are known to take it to real life. Absolutely. There's some crazies out there. Just, protect yourself.
Yeah.
Did Jeremy happen to notice any blood trail from the house that morning?
Nope.
Yeah, I mean,
the police had that area secured before they even sent out the notice to shelter in place. So there was no one going onto or off of that property unless you were either law enforcement or working with the prosecution.
that makes sense. Ruckus said, I don't know which area of law that you're studying, but if you could become a defense attorney, you're already well versed in dealing with the craziness and trial by media.
True. Currently,
That's
criminal law is my third plan, but
okay.
If the first two don't work out, then criminal law, here I come.
There you go. I heard a rumor there was a camera that could see down the road. Anyone heard this? Could just be a rumor. But there is a ring camera. Was it across the road that possibly got the vehicle going down the street? That the private driver that drove them home. Do you know anything about that? Have you seen a ring camera on any of the doors?
I haven't. There might be a ring camera on one of the houses along Taylor,
Okay.
maybe closer to the intersection of Taylor and Blake. There might be, but in the specific little cul-de-sac area of King and Queen, there's not any cameras that I've noticed, at least.
Okay. Quiet dog. Yeah, the dogs seem to have been quiet. Living right there and you don't even know there's a dog there is pretty interesting. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate your thoughtfulness. Jeremy's not involved. What is wrong with people? People are crazy. True Crime Web. This is another retired cop who has a channel. Great guy, Steve. He wants to know, did you find the owner of the phone? Do you still have the phone?
So I did find the owner of the phone. One of the houses that I went to, it was an iPhone, and I don't use iPhone, so I totally forgot that Siri existed. And so I went to one of the houses, and they were like, have you tried calling anybody? And I was like, I don't know how. Like, it's a locked phone. I don't know the password. And so they were like, hey, Siri. And they tried calling mom and dad, and that didn't work. But when it tried calling dad, it ended up calling someone in the contacts as Papa. So I ended up calling his grandpa. So his grandpa answered, and I was like, hi, my name's Jeremy. I found this phone. I don't know who it belongs to. He was like, oh, it belongs to my grandson. He lives on campus there. And I was like, do you know where? And he was like, I don't, but I can ask his dad. And so his dad called a couple minutes later and was like, oh, yeah, his name is this. He lives at this building on campus. And so I walked it down and gave it to him.
Awesome.
So it's a good thing those girls were there and knew how to use Siri, because otherwise he wouldn't have had his phone back.
Where's this? I like you, Jeremy. You seem like a really kind person.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I want to have you on. Let people see who you are and whatnot, because it's terrible how, you give an interview and you get destroyed by, the online detectives.
Yeah. I will say my favorite rumor that I read online was my motive was the fact that I have a receding hairline and only 2 followers on LinkedIn. When I read that, I busted up laughing. I took a screenshot. I sent it to my friends. I was like, damn, they found me. They found me out. Those 2 followers on LinkedIn.
Yeah, they're kind of ruthless. They're ruthless. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. Do you think the roommates coming over before they called 911 contaminated evidence? We just don't know. Yeah, we don't know. I think that the roommates called possibly maybe Ethan's friends over because they couldn't get in the room. Say the doors were locked by the killer and they couldn't get in. That could be the reason, and then they wouldn't have seen anything. We have to see. You didn't hear anybody outside screaming prior to the cops coming, right? like
Yeah,
that
no,
morning, like 12, like around 11:55 before they were called at 11:58. You
yeah,
didn't hear
no,
any
there's
screaming going on?
nope. No, like I said, I woke up, everything was quiet and normal, and then all of a sudden we got this. Police think there's been a quadruple homicide at this address on King Road. Shelter in place, stay vigilant. And so that was the first time anything made that morning seem not normal. There was no one outside screaming or crying or asking for help or anything like that. Then all of a sudden there's 12 police vehicles there, crime scene tape everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of just unfolded right before you guys' eyes. Some scary stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, Jeremy. You're genuine and forthcoming. Good luck with your law career.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Jeremy? Anything else? Have you seen many large knives in your neighborhood? Is it common for people there to own big hunting or military knives?
So the question of seeing knives in the neighborhood, no. Most people don't walk around brandishing this like, hey, look at this big knife I have.
Yeah.
It's just not something people do. In terms of owning the big hunting or military knives, I would say yes, it is fairly common. Just because in Idaho generally, people are hunters. In this area specifically, there's even more. And so to own those types of knives is fairly common. Um, I mean, you wouldn't use like a massive knife for like gutting a fish, but even the fishermen have fairly large knives.
Mm-hmm.
And so owning stuff like that is definitely common.
So this might be Jeremy's calling to go into criminal law.
Like I said, that's third plan of action currently.
Has law enforcement interviewed locals yet? I'm sure they have, but just a question to you.
I mean, other than that first door-to-door interaction, like an hour or two after the shelter-in-place order, to my knowledge, no. They have interviewed a lot of people. I think they've said it's roughly like 50 or 100 people so far that
Didn't
they've
they say?
interviewed.
They said 90. It might be more than that now. I think they were at 90. I think they were possibly around 90.
Yeah, so they've definitely interviewed a lot of people and questioned them about various stuff. But in terms of coming back to the neighborhood and just trying to go door to door, not that I've seen at least. I'm pretty sure everyone has been, I don't know if subpoenaed is correct, but at least asked to come in and do interviews with the police.
Yeah. What is the word around town? Is there a general consensus of what people think happened? Or what about any rumors? I mean, is there anything being said?
Not that I've heard. I think everyone is just sort of going with what the police have said of it was someone they broke in, they used a knife to kill the 4 students and left. I don't think people are really trying to speculate anything beyond that because the police have a lot more evidence than we do.
Yeah. Well, Twitter's sure trying to figure it out.
Oh yeah, Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, they're all doing everything they can to try and figure out anything based on anything.
I got a message that was a mob was going to come after me. That's what I was. That's what I was told, and I just laughed. It is what it is. I could take the criticism anytime. Jeremy, after this experience, are you going to follow true crime on the internet, or do you think we're all crazy?
So I actually already had a fascination with true crime. I would listen to true crime podcasts. I would watch shows and documentaries and stuff about it even before this. So, I mean, it's not going to make me do it any more than I used to, but it's also not going to stop me from doing it because it's still something that I'm just interested in generally.
Good choice, Jeremy, to come on with one of the good guys. Well, I told him that, he'd be fine here, and he's fine. Question for Jeremy. How does he feel with all the negative media attention? Keep your chin up, please. It will pass. I'm sure it's not fun, but he can answer that.
Yeah, so like I said, luckily I have a thick skin. So all of the people saying all this stuff doesn't really bother me. I would have just let it keep happening because it's not true. But once my friend had reached out to me and had sent me that picture of other people talking with her and asking questions about me, that's when I was like, all right, I need to sort of address this just so that friends and family don't get involved with this unnecessarily. And so again, if people want to try harassing me, bring it on. Like, I'm a born and bred internet troll. I can definitely handle whatever they can throw at me. But it's when you involve other people that I'm like, all right, this has to stop now.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, you're a third-year law student. You don't need to be thrown through the mud either, you know? So
True, yeah.
Steve from True Crime Web, he's got a good question again. In neighborhoods canvas questions, was there any question that stood out to you? Like, was there a time that they asked you about, or anything that possibly stood out by what they asked?
No, the cop that came by, he just asked, "Were you here last night? Did you see anything or hear anything? Are there any cameras in this neighborhood?" That's all he said was last night. He didn't give any sort of time frame of whether it was 11 at night or 5 in the morning or 3 in the morning. He just said last night.
Okay. Do you think with internet idiots like me, do you think Ellie needs to start clearing folks like Jeremy? Well, as you've seen at the press conferences, they've been, the questions asked have been pretty vocal on certain people. So if they did mention Jeremy's name, I'm sure that they would say something.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they're going to come outright and in the media statement, when they put the statements out, that his name's going to be there. Anyone who suspects this guy is a moron, I think he is on the up and up. Thanks for the great interview to both of you. Broken, I thought Ellie said no signs of forced entry. Well, there isn't any sign of forced entry. I was talking about the bedrooms. I'm not sure what your question is there. It's crazy how sometimes this thing just shoots out like 20 comments at once.
Yeah.
There's a camera at the moving storage place down the road facing the street. Do you know anything about what the moving storage place that they're talking about?
I think there's a place on Highway 95 there before you turn on to Taylor. I could be wrong on the location. I know it's in that general area, right in that intersection, sort of by the gas station. But that's also a quarter mile away from this neighborhood. If someone went up and over the hill back toward Highway 95, I'm sure it would catch them. But it would be probably smarter and easier to just cut through that grass field, cut through campus, and get to wherever you were going without hitting anywhere that has an intersection with cameras or lights or anything like that.
That's interesting. And you say from the frat house to even the back of this house, there's no cameras?
Correct.
Nothing.
Nope. A giant open field, a bunch of apartments, relatively old that are being sort of renovated a little bit. But yeah, no cameras. One functioning light. I don't even know if it's still functioning. It did a while ago. Between the gray buildings on Taylor, those gray apartments, and the buildings directly to the right of it, still in front of the house where this happened, there's a light post there. The light used to work. It's quit working. I haven't really paid much attention to if it's working again or not. But between the frat house and that house, that was the only functioning light, other than the ones along the main road. But those ones, I don't know why. It seems like they're not lit very often.
Interesting. Where's that question? Do you have a large transient population? Would an unfamiliar face in the neighborhood stand out to the locals?
Yes, to the large transient population. It's a college town. People come and go every couple of years. So I don't think an unfamiliar face would stand out to anybody. They would just be like, oh, this must be a new student, or this might be a cousin, a brother, a parent, anything like that. I think it's common enough to have new people come and go that another new face wouldn't make anyone Like it wouldn't raise hairs on anyone's neck, being like, "Oh, this guy is weird. Why is he here?"
And that day, the day before, was there a football game you guys had? Was it home?
If it was a Saturday, then yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Oh
it
no,
was
it wasn't a
a
Saturday. It
game.
wasn't a Saturday. Yeah, it wasn't. Because I saw somebody messaged me saying that something about California. I don't know if there's a team from California that played the weekend that people were seen partying. I don't know how true it is, so it might just be a rumor. So we'll just leave that. We'll leave that alone. Have the police been door to door since the attack, like a second or third round of questions for residents, or was you just had that one encounter? You're being encountered more by the media than you are law enforcement, right?
Yeah, the media is definitely getting at me more than law enforcement ever has. Yeah, it was just the one time that I've seen, at least. Other people might have dealt with it more, but for me specifically, it was just the one time so far.
Who in the neighborhood is the nosy neighbor that knows everything, stays up late, early riser? You see anybody lurking around windows and whatnot?
I don't. If we were in a neighborhood with a more permanent population, it probably would happen. But with this, so I've had new neighbors every year that I've been here. I'm the only one that's been consistent. Other than the people a couple doors down from me, they've been there since at least last year. But it seems like people are at that apartment complex for a year and then they go somewhere else. And so even that population just in the apartment complex is alternating pretty frequently.
Are you kind of somebody that just you're like, I'm happy here, I'm staying here. You don't want to keep bouncing around?
Well, I have a dog, and for some reason, apartments hate pets, and so it's hard to find a place that'll accept pets. And so
that makes
I
sense.
found a place that took pets, and I said, "Well, I'm only here for 3 years. I can just suck it up." So I'm just there.
Would you say the majority of the daytime, nighttime traffic in your neighborhood is people walking on foot or driving vehicles?
Considering it's a dead end, I would say it's mostly on foot. The only people driving vehicles there are people that live there, because they're just driving back up to the parking lot to go home. It's mostly foot traffic because a lot of the students that come into that area live on campus and just do that short walk from campus to this area just off campus.
And how long is that walk from campus to there?
So like I said, it's about 10 minutes from the various student housing areas on campus to the neighborhood. It's roughly 10 minutes.
Has Jeremy ever spoken to any of the victims or the others in the house?
Nope.
Just like a nod just like a kind of like a neighborly nod in a sense.
Yeah, that's all it ever was just I see him getting in or out of their car. I sort of smile at him, nod my head, keep walking. But I never actually spoke to any of them.
Does Jeremy know any other neighbors willing to be interviewed?
I mean, not personally. I'm sure other people are willing to be interviewed, but I don't know if they have said that they want to or if they're going to. But I'm sure other people are willing, but I just don't know if they have or not. I just know that coincidentally, I always happen to be the one walking outside at the wrong time. And so I'm always the one that they're like, "Hey, will you do an interview?" And so maybe it's bad luck, maybe it's just timing, whatever it is. But
the first interview that you did, that's the one that, because I have like North Face shirts that have the thumb where your thumb comes out of them.
That was the second interview.
That was the second interview?
Yeah, my first interview was the one where I was just in a plain black t-shirt, which I actually addressed this on my posts on Reddit because a bunch of people were saying like, "Oh, it's bandages," or "He's trying to hide his arms or hide his hands." And so I was like, that was my second interview. My first interview, I was in nothing but a plain t-shirt. Like either of the two people talking to me would have noticed something on my arms or hands because they were totally exposed. The reporter was all bundled up, but I was just out in a plain t-shirt. And so, yeah, it was the second interview, and it's actually this coat right here next to me. But yeah, those thumb holes are just built into the sleeves because it's a ski jacket.
Yeah,
so
same thing with somebody.
Through and then stick gloves on, and it doesn't have your sleeve roll up all weird.
Exactly. How long have you been there? Is this your second year or third year?
So I've lived there 2 full years. I'm in my third year of school, but I moved here in August of 2020.
Oh, did we get to that question? Where did it go? Are you the guy interviewed who parks in backwards? Is your father a homicide detective?
Nope. I assume that guy lives in the upper building. He could live in the lower building, just on the second or third floor. I don't know. But no, I'm not the guy. I do back in, but I'm not that guy.
Okay. We identified the stable long-term resident. Yeah, we did. Yeah. What true crime cases have you followed? Like, what's your favorite true crime case?
It's not really that I follow specific cases, just true crime generally. I just like listening to the podcasts and hearing about all the other stuff that has happened dating back a couple hundred years ago to stuff that happened a couple weeks ago, just anything in between. So there's not really anything that I specifically follow. I do like following the cases about the various serial killers, like the Gainesville Ripper, the Green River Killer, the Golden State Killer, stuff like that. But just whatever the various podcasts are talking about is what I listen to. I don't try to find anything in particular.
Okay. Are you in fear of the killer being loose? There's a killer on the loose on the campus or around campus.
Not in fear necessarily. It is a little bit like unsettling, and it does sort of just make you more cautious. But it's not like I'm scared of the killer just coming out of nowhere and stabbing me in the back as I'm out walking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's more of an uneasy feeling rather than fear.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now that you have addressed the nonsense, will you refrain from future interviews?
Probably not. I've actually had other people already reach out to me about doing it. I was supposed to do one on CNN last night, but they had the protests in China take up too much of the airtime. And so they were like, yeah, we're going to have to cancel. Sorry about that. I'm like, no problem. And then I had people from Dr. Phil reach out to me. So I might be doing a video interview on Dr. Phil. Who knows? I know other somewhat local, or not local, but like small time reporters have reached out to me. I think I'm supposed to do one later today with Original Media Group. I'm pretty sure is the name of the company. One of the guys that works for that had sent me a message and asked if I would do an interview. So I said, sure. So I think I'm supposed to do that with two women later today.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if people ask me, I tell them beforehand, I don't have any information that you don't have other than the fact that I live close by. I can sort of explain the neighborhood, but beyond that, I don't have any information that the general public doesn't have.
But talking to you gave us a lot of insight about the area, what it's like there, just 30 seconds to get from Sigma. I didn't know it was that close. I mean, there's a lot that you can learn from just listening to you for a few minutes.
Yeah.
My previous question for those that keep repeating stuff. Public art, I'm not sure what you mean. The question is jacket, Olivia. His jacket, because it had like thumb holes that hold it. Basically, it holds the sleeve down, so the sleeve doesn't ride up with that.
Yeah. So what it is, it's the sleeve, but then it has this extra little addition, which does have the thumb hole here.
Yeah. So it holds your sleeve in place.
Yeah, but they saw that it was around my thumb, and so they were like, oh, it's a bandage, or he's trying to cover his hands to hide something. So that's what people were saying when I was wearing this coat and doing the interview, was that I was trying to hide something.
Yeah.
Susie, it was a gun.
Weapon that he carried for a semester is a firearms license, right? You have a license?
I do. In Idaho, you don't need one, but I do have one.
I know that. Yeah, no, I know you don't need one, but it's good. It's always good to have one.
Yeah.
With the high turnover of residences, are those managed by a company? Is there management companies for the houses, or independent owners, specifically those inside of the crime scene? So do you know, like the owners of the home, is it like they have a management company, or is it landlord rented?
The houses I don't know about. The apartment complexes are managed by companies. I would assume that companies also do the various houses there, but it might just be independent owners that rent it out each year. But I don't have knowledge of that. I just know about my apartment specifically.
Okay. Jeremy, you seem like a great guy. Keep on. Just a quick question. Have you seen anyone lurking around that you normally haven't seen lately? Maybe somebody revisiting the crime scene?
No. And if someone was doing that, I'm sure that the cop that is permanently stationed outside the house would notice it and probably do something about it. But I haven't noticed anybody there that hasn't been there before. Most people are just gone generally. It's not like there's new people coming except media. Hey, public, I might look weak, but I'm strong. Okay, leave me alone.
Come on. Listen, we talk about it all the time. I mean, I don't even want to answer that question because somebody would crop it and play it somewhere. It's just not worth it. Is Jeremy familiar with the Ted Bundy Chi Omega murders in Florida? Do you feel any similarities? That's a good question.
I'm vaguely familiar with them, other than the fact that it was a bunch of people, a bunch of college-age people that were attacked. I don't think there were many similarities. I don't remember if I know Ted Bundy had at least tried to strangle one or two of them. He might have used a knife on other people that he'd killed there. But Ted Bundy was also a necrophile, and there's no evidence that any of that happened here. And so
it's true.
Beyond the fact that it was college-age students, I don't think there were many similarities. I definitely don't think it was a copycat, if that's what that question was going toward.
Does he just want to get the correct information out? Well, see on red flags, he's been being accused of being the killer. I mean, from him giving a couple of media interviews. I mean, that's the problem sometimes with social media and true crime.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, the code over hands. I said that too, and I apologize. See, that's public. That's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and
I knew what it was when I saw it because I have shirts that do that, so that they don't ride up, and come off when you have gloves and whatnot. It's just they're like a sports shirt or even jackets like he has.
Yeah, and I've noticed, at least from what I've seen, is a lot of people don't know the order of interviews. They think the one that I did in my gray coat here was the first one, but it was actually the second one that had happened 2 or 3 days later. And so I think people just saw that one because that's the one that went viral, and they assumed that was my first interview. And so I think that's partly why people were like, oh, he's just trying to hide his bandages, or he's trying to bandage his hands or hide stuff, because they don't realize that I had done an interview prior to that in a short sleeve t-shirt.
With a t-shirt. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think
Hey,
it was
Grizzly, how are you? Yeah, no, that makes sense. Anybody have anything else? Oh, it's very scary stuff in those.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Grizzly knows that your first interview you had a t-shirt on.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions for Jeremy? What time did you walk the dog on the 12th? Like, do you have a normal routine?
Not really. I take her out a couple times a day to go to the bathroom. Occasionally I will take her on walks like in the neighborhood, usually more during like the summertime and the warmer times a month, or the warmer times of the year, that I'll take her in walks around the neighborhood. Otherwise I would usually just go to the dog park, let her run around the dog park to get her energy out. So I mean, I couldn't tell you what time I took her out to go to the bathroom and whatnot that day. 2 or 3 times.
I think they mean more so at night. Do you take your dog out right before you go to bed, or?
I do. Again, I went to bed around 11:30, so I probably took her out between like 10:30 and 11. But at that point, all the other people were either at the house getting ready to leave to go out for the night, or were already out for the night. And so it's not like there was anything suspicious at that point. It was just me taking my dog out, her doing what she needed to do, me coming back.
Okay. Did you walk your dog on the 13th in the AM?
I did not. I mean, at first I did go out with her in the morning. That was before any of the police had arrived or set up any of the crime scene. And so, again, everything seemed normal. I took her out. She went to the bathroom. I went back inside. And then I was actually getting ready to leave and go do some laundry when we got that shelter in place order. And so I was just stuck inside for an extra couple hours before I could even go do the daily chores. And so, I mean, I did take my dog out that morning, but at that point it was before anything had happened. And so there was nothing strange to look at or observe.
Okay. I'm trying to find, I know Steve sent another question there. Where is law enforcement focused most on the outside of the, most of the outside investigation, like area specific?
I'm not positive. I know they've been doing around the front area and sort of like the back by the windows and the sliding door. I don't know if they've been checking along the side of the house often, or if they've checked out in the parking area. Because it's a gravel parking area. So, I mean, it's not like you're going to get like muddy footprints or something in there. It's pretty solidly packed from all the vehicles that drive on it. And so I think they've been trying to focus right up near the house rather than sort of on the edges of the property.
Okay. So otherwise, besides the police that morning, again, you didn't see any blood trails or anything like that?
Nope.
Makeup Jackie, as a former LE, do you think social media overall helps more or hurts more in these cases? It's both. You know, when you're dragging people through the mud, it's, you know, it's not a good thing. It's terrible. Aspen, Adam asks you, what kind of reputation does Sigma Chi have on campus? What kind of guys gravitate towards that frat? Good question.
I don't know of their reputation. They seem to just be generic undergrad frat boys. Like, it doesn't seem anything out of the ordinary. Like, they don't seem extra aggressive or extra kind or anything like that. They just seem very run of the mill college frat boy type. I'm sure most of the frat guys are generally into like sports, like basketball, football, baseball, stuff like that. But I know outside that house or outside that building specifically, they have like a little half court basketball area, and there's a bunch of people out there during the warmer months out playing basketball or throwing a football around, stuff like that. But other than that, I don't know if there's a specific type of person that necessarily goes to that frat versus a different frat on campus.
Okay. In your opinion, do you think the suspect would have walked or drove to the scene?
Almost certainly walked. Moscow is a very small community. It's very walking friendly. There's no reason to really drive anywhere unless you need to go to the grocery store and you have more stuff than you can carry. Everything is super accessible just by walking. And so I would guess that they most likely walked, just because it's easier to not get caught on a camera that way. It's easier to hide in the dark. It's a small area. It's not hard to get from one place to another in a short amount of time.
Makes sense. Well, that's Andrew. That's social media for you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it goes. You know, somebody felt, you know, he was given too many interviews. That turned into, you know, him being a suspect, and you know, people roll with that, and they start, you know, asking his family and stuff like that. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I should know this, but is this housing on? This is off campus.
Yep, it's just barely off campus. The field across Taylor Avenue is the edge of campus property. And so it's literally just right across the street from campus, or at least from campus property.
Okay. Grizzly True Crime wants to know, is it true that in that house, the sophomores stay bottom floor, juniors middle, seniors top?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's ranked by class or if it's just I want the top floor. You can have the top floor, I'll take the bottom type of thing. I have no idea how they have people organized.
Okay. Well, now that they're not saying that the Kabar was from a shop that's in town that I guess law enforcement might have asked that. They're using fixed blade now. That's what they're using. Does Moscow have a high LDS presence?
No. The LDS presence is mostly in southern Idaho. There's a lot of Lutherans up here, and then a lot of people involved with Christ Church. A couple other like minority areas here, but it's mostly Lutheran and Christ Church, almost exclusively.
Do you know anything about the rumor one of the surviving roommates passed out outside after finding Ethan, hence the 911 call for an unconscious person with the friends who called?
I don't know anything about that. No, I don't know whether that rumor is true or not.
Okay. Jeremy, you must be a true crimer to know Ted Bundy was a necrophile. Bundy fans argue against this, but in all my research, there was some bits of info on that. Yeah, you said you like some true crime stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he admitted to sleeping with some of the bodies after he had killed them. I'm pretty sure it's inarguable that he was a necrophile. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Bundy had admitted to it.
Susie, you ready? He answered this a couple of times. He carries a firearm. All right. Anybody got any questions? Because I gotta close out, and then I'm gonna come back in like maybe I'll come back on in an hour. I gotta go to my kids' school for a holiday gift. It's like a little gift shop they got for the kids.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's fun. That'll be fun. So, about the leader. You know anything about the Christ Church? Have you heard anything about it?
It is very cult-like. Yes. I've heard stuff about them sort of like defending pedophiles within the church itself, and other stuff like that. But it is definitely a very cult-like religion versus a lot of other religions in an area.
Has Jeremy ever hunted?
Yeah, about a decade ago. And I actually addressed this on Reddit because one of the psychics had said, oh, he's a hunter. So he left the house and went to his hunting cabin. First of all, I'm from southern Idaho. I don't have a hunting cabin up here. Second of all, the last time I hunted was in 2012 or 2013. Just because after that I got busy doing school or work or whatever else. And so I used to be a hunter. I'm not currently anymore. I might go back to it at some point when my schedule opens up a little bit. But yeah, I did used to be a hunter.
Makes sense. If the killer knew the code on the keypad, would he or she have been the last person to use it? Seems like a perfect place to find the fingerprint. They've fingerprinted that entire house, door frames. Yeah, Reddit's, it's people get, it turns into an addiction where they're not sleeping, and it just the speculation gets crazier and crazier.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jeremy, CD and the mods. I'm replaying right after. Thank you for chatting with us. Jeremy, you've been great. I appreciate it. And, if I get some more follow-up questions, I'll ask you if you want to come on again. Do you have anything to close out with? I really appreciate you doing this today.
I say I don't really have anything to say at the end here. I appreciate you having me on so that I could sort of explain my side of things a little bit, help you guys all understand more of the neighborhood, just generally what it's like, stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really have anything to say to end it.
I appreciate you coming. I mean, it really, it was good having you. It answered a lot of questions. I'm sure it will calm some of the craziest now, and I hope. And what if you end up knowing the killer? How would you feel?
I mean, it would be odd if I knew the killer. Like I said, I basically only know the law students up here. I don't interact with anyone else. If it was one or two people that I know, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, it would surprise me that that's who they went after, but just generally that it was them wouldn't surprise me. But I would be shocked if I knew the person that did it.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Well, thanks for being here. I appreciate you coming on, and I'll message you in a little bit. I appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Everybody, I'll put something in the community post. I might go back on maybe in an hour. We'll see. But thanks everybody for being here. Jeremy, thanks again.
Yeah, no problem.